The Chrono-Synthesis Experiment. In 1993, a small private research facility known as Echelon Labs was founded deep in the woods of rural Ohio. The lab's purpose was to push the boundaries of time manipulation and quantum theory. Headed by Dr. Lucinda Abernathy, a brilliant yet eccentric scientist, the project quickly gained notoriety among a select group of elite academics. They called the experiment Chrono-Synthesis. The premise of chronosynthesis was simple, or so it seemed at first: to manipulate biological matter by altering its relationship with time. Abernathy hypothesized that time could be treated like a fluid that, when altered, could accelerate or slow the biological processes within living organisms. Her goal was not to create immortality, at least not in the way people expected. Rather, she sought to give life forms the ability to resynchronize themselves with time, thereby curing disease, healing wounds, and even reversing aging in small doses. The experiment began with lab rats, but it wasn't long before Abernathy moved on to something bigger: human trials. In 1995, Dr. Abernathy and her team selected their first volunteer, a terminally ill patient named Peter Mackenzie, who had been diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of cancer. Mackenzie was desperate and, seeing no other option, agreed to undergo the experimental procedure. The team believed that if they could manipulate the tumor's timeline, they could reverse its growth and even prevent the cancer from spreading. The experiment was conducted in a sealed chamber, a room lined with strange, humming machinery and blinking lights. A large egg-shaped capsule stood in the center, where Mackenzie would be placed. After calibrating the equipment, Abernathy activated the chronosynthesis device. A low, rhythmic pulse filled the room. For a moment, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But then, the unexpected happened. The capsule began to tremble, the lights flickered, and a strange static buzzed through the air. Peter Mackenzie's body seemed to twist and contort, as if pulled in and out of time. The air in the room grew thick, heavy with the sound of a distant ticking clock, louder and louder, like the pounding of 1,000 heartbeats. When the noise stopped, the team opened the capsule, expecting to find a rejuvenated Mackenzie. Instead, they found something else. Peter Mackenzie's body was there, but it was as though time had broken him in ways they couldn't comprehend. His skin had aged by decades in the span of a few minutes, but there were also signs that parts of him had somehow regressed. His muscles were atrophied, his hair was graying, and his face appeared to have shifted, as though pulled from different eras. His eyes, however, were the most unsettling. They were wide and blank, staring straight ahead, but they twitched as though they were still adjusting to the flow of time. Mackenzie's body was alive, but it no longer seemed fully present, as if he were simultaneously caught in the past and the future, unable to fully exist in the present. The team quickly realized they had made a terrible mistake. Abernathy tried to shut down the device, but the machinery continued to pulse erratically. The lights flickered again, and as Mackenzie's form spasmed violently, his body began to disintegrate at a terrifying speed. His skin cracked and peeled away, revealing something otherworldly underneath. A formless, shifting mass of what could only be described as time itself. It was as though Mackenzie's body had been broken down into raw, temporal energy, leaking through the cracks in his skin and pooling on the floor. The research team fled in panic, but not all of them made it out. Several were later found dead in the woods, their bodies frozen in impossible positions, their faces locked in expressions of terror. Others spoke of hearing Mackenzie's voice, distorted and fragmented, as though coming from multiple places at once, calling for help in a language they could not understand. The Chrono-Synthesis project was immediately shut down. The lab was sealed off, and all records of the experiment were erased. Dr. Abernathy vanished without a trace, and it's rumored that she continued her research in secret, driven by an obsessive desire to fix what she had broken. Years later, a group of thrill-seekers ventured into the abandoned lab, hoping to document the ghost stories surrounding Echelon Labs. What they found, however, was far more disturbing than any legend. In the center of the ruined chamber, they discovered an old, battered journal, its pages filled with Abernathy's final notes. She had written about Peter Mackenzie and how she had learned to hear his voice again. But the last entry was what truly horrified them. "I can hear him calling to me. He says he's learned how to break time itself. But now, he's not just trapped in it. He is it, and he is waiting for me to join him." That was the last anyone ever heard of Echelon Labs.